Hi, and welcome. Thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Dave Worland. I'm with the Governor's Office of Faith-Based Community Initiative. This is a Faith Leader Roundtable for Tennessee Fosters Hope. We are thrilled that you guys are here. Tennessee Foster Hope is a statewide collaborative campaign that's born out of the recognition that we must do more to adequately meet the needs of our foster and adopted youth and the families that step up to serve them. Tennessee Fosters Hope model engages state agencies, community organizations, and the business community, of course, houses of worship, to elevate to high quality care and opportunities for children and families impacted by foster care and adoption. The Tennessee Fosters Hope initiative includes these areas of focus. First is to establish a network of churches statewide that will support the foster and adopted needs of our community. Second, we'll be recruiting and certifying families who can care for foster children even if they have increased needs. And then third, building pathways for the full Department of Children's Services custody children, those that DCS has full custody of, to find permanent adoptive homes for them. To learn more information and to connect about the campaign, you can go to tnfostershope.com. You'll see that several more times, and we'll put it in the chat box. But it's tnfostershope.com. Today, we are excited about having a great panel of folks that have come together that are all folks in houses of worship that are passionate about what they're doing. They all have experience in this space, direct experience in this space. So we know that what you're going to hear from them is going to be valuable and helpful to you. Houses of worship are vitally important in making sure that we recruit foster and adoptive parents, and that they are well supported. It's not enough to do one. We need them well supported in this process. You're going to hear a lot about that today. May is Foster Care Awareness Month. There are many ways that your houses of worship can get involved in this space, and our panelists will provide you with a lot of insight. First, I want to introduce Mark Ottinger. He's going to be our moderator for the meeting. He's with Memphis Family Connection Center. Steve Chatman is with River Community Church in Cookeville. Brandy Whitehead's with Church of City in Franklin, and Tracy Taplin is with Foothills Church in Maryville. Mo, I appreciate your willingness to lead this discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to you and let you address these questions and moderate this meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And yeah, grateful to be on here with all of you, and grateful for this panel. And so if Steve, why don't we just start with you to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll go Brandy and then Tracy.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, my name's Steve Chatman, and I am the family pastor at the River Community Church. We're located in Cookeville, Tennessee. And we have been active in our community with adoption and foster care ministry. Have a huge heart for that personally. I have 3 adopted children. 3 of our 5 are adopted. And so that's been very near and dear to my heart for many years. And so it's just kind of a natural, outpouring that our church that I serve on staff would be heavily involved in that. So, yeah.
Thanks. Brandy?
Hi, I'm Brandy Whitehead. My husband and I planted Church of the City in 2013. My background is social work, so I've been a social worker for about 20 years working with vulnerable children. I spent 6 years as a government social worker, so I've been working in the court system and just recognize the need for children to have advocates and people that fight for them and nurture them. Throughout my life, I have brought needs to the church, and they are met every single time. So I truly believe this is an awareness issue that we can get in front of the church and really make some change.
Thank you. Tracy?
Hello, I'm Tracy Taplin, and my role is Director of Community Engagement at Foothills Church in Maryville, Tennessee in Blount County. And personally, our family has been built both through biology and adoption. So we are a proud adoptive family. We have been licensed foster parents, and I have been involved in some way or another with foster care and adoption for over 20 years.
Thank you, Tracy. A little bit about myself. I am I am in Memphis, and so we tried to get kind of the whole state represented across the gamut. So I'm on the west side, pastor in Memphis for almost 20 years. Up until May 3rd was my last day on staff at a church, and now I'm officially all with Empowered to Connect and Memphis Family Connection Center. So passionate about helping families through adoption, foster care, and excited for this group, this panel to share. So panel, whoever wants to take it first, kind of tell me, we've all shared kind of why we're passionate about it. I guess I didn't share. I have 6 kids all through adoption. So we all kind of came to this in unique ways, in different ways. But as we're talking to church leaders, and they're the whole gamut of all the needs, there are plenty of needs around every corner for churches. How did y'all's churches begin to say, man, foster care, adoptive, engaging adoptive families is where we want to begin to kind of make an impact?
I can share. In 2015, we learned that our county had just a low number of foster families, and America's Kids Belong was interested in coming to Tennessee. So we highlighted the issue one Sunday from the pulpit. And at that time, I think we had 23 foster families for our whole county. So most of our kids were placed out of our county. We highlighted it and asked for people to come forward and use their gifts. And we had videographers show up. We had people give money. We had hosted a Next Steps event, and over 200 people came. So it was really highlighting the need. And again, I believe the church will respond once they know the need. So that's how we kind of got into it.
When I got to our church, I instantly sensed that there was a gathering of those that have fostered or were fostering or were adopting or in the process. So I think there was just sort of this organic gathering of these people. And then there became the awareness that there needed to be support for these families. So a ministry was actually formed to create a leadership team, as well as support and encourage, equip, and spread the word. Just like Brandy said, just awareness in our area of the incredible need. And it's just grown from there.
Yeah, for us, I think, like I said, it just from my own personal experience of being doing foster care and being an adoptive parent, realized just our own challenges that we faced and the need for resources, just figuring things out. And so as we got to talk, and we realized there were a lot of other families in our church that had adopted, that were fostering. And so for me, as I would have opportunities to speak in our church, I would share about these things. And it seems like it's kind of like, blood in the water when a church starts talking about this and gets excited about, hey, we want to come alongside and we want to equip and train and help and resource. Well, then it's like the local agencies started reaching out to us and saying, hey, we understand this. And we just really tried to go with that and build those relationships with them and say, how can we come alongside of you? Because I think a lot of times churches, we know how to do vacation Bible school and revival services, but sometimes we don't know how do we engage in our community, and especially with Department of Children's Services and foster care agencies. So just starting to have conversations with them where we would invite them to the table and really listening, and how can we help you? And then what we saw from that was that, wow, there's a lot of ways that the local church can come alongside these agencies and and they helped us know how to better come alongside the families in our church as well. So it's just really been a beautiful partnership, throughout the years.
I'll jump in and just say, for us, it was, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever it was, I went and just approached the Department of Children's Services and said, all right, how can the local church come alongside, serve? What can we do? And I'll be honest, I had kind of some expectations. I had some things that I wanted to do. And I'll never forget the quote from Miss Merlene when she said, man, if I had $1 for every church that approaches me, and you know, I could have retired 20 years ago, and all the churches approach, but no one sticks around. No one wants to stay in this because it can be messy. And so I think that's what I love about the three of y'all that have shared. I think for all of us, there's some longevity and we understand that. But that stuck with me of, you know, DCS didn't want it just to be another program or just another, hey, this is something else the church is going to do for this season, and then we'll move on. And so it has been really sweet and fun to see just churches locking arms in Shelby County and Memphis serving. And we've, you know, obviously I'm not saying it started a decade ago. There's been churches serving DCS long before that, but it's been fun to see a dozen or so churches begin to just jump in. And we just kind of, wherever DCS needed us, we started serving, and it's been fun to see each church now in Shelby County kind of have their own lane of what they feel, man, this is how I can serve, whether that's supporting foster families, whether that's supporting caseworkers, on and on. And so I would say, yeah, let's just go there for a second. As y'all have approached DCS, Department of Children's Services, as churches are listening today, just what's some advice that y'all would give them of like, all right, I want to start something. They get off this webinar and they're like, who do I talk to in my area, and what should I expect, and what do we have to offer? Like, how should they approach the agencies? How should they approach DCS?
I happen to know a DCS worker I consider a warrior. She's been there over 20 years in our local office, that attended our church. And so I introduced myself to her originally and just asked her, who do you think I should reach out to, you know, short of knocking on the door or walking in? And she was kind enough to connect me with the person that would be the best person, without stepping on toes or assuming someone else even wanted to meet me. So I went through someone that I sought out, and there's a friendship that's come out of that. And then I found doors just continued to open. And once you get to know them on a personal level, like you just mentioned, is it Miss Marlene? I mean, obviously she's been a friend for a long time. You see that they're just people, and they are sometimes not looked at as partners. And I think that's a big mistake, because these are people out there doing a very hard job every day. And they are for the kids and they are for the families. So once those introductions were made, the relationships just went on from there. And just most recently, I was just personally invited, and as well as people in our ministry, to come just witness a foster care parent appreciation from DCS, as the parents did a drive-through appreciation. And we were just asked to be part of that. And that just meant so much, from that first introduction to seeing families drive by in their large vehicles with a lot of their kiddos in tow, and seeing their faces light up when they saw their worker. So I would say, first of all, reach out, even if it is directly to the DCS local office in your county. And then I would say follow through. Just like you said, Mo, don't be a one and done. You know, earn their trust and over deliver. Just be there for them.
That's really good, Tracy.
Yeah, I can chime in. I was a program director for a transitional housing program for homeless single moms and their children in Chicago. And people, well-meaning in the church, would come to me and say, "Hey, we've got all this bubble bath. We've got all this, you know." And it's like, these hardworking single moms don't need bubble baths. They're going like around like this. And so going, you know, learning to say, what do you need, instead of saying, hey, I've got an idea for a flip-flop drive and DCS is storing 1 billion flip-flops. Like, going to them and say, what can you use? Tell us what you need. One way I've got to build a relationship with DCS is just asking, hey, can we supply lunch for you? And order lunch in and just love on the social workers. Thank you for the hard work you're doing for the kids in our city. Even sitting with them and talking with them, or giving them gifts during Social Work Appreciation Month. we've grown this relationship probably in the last 5 years with DCS, to where we have a really good working relationship with them. And their building's kind of dark, and we said, hey, would you like fresh paint and remodel, and let them kind of do a design, and they just remodeled it. And they said, this adds so much just peace when you walk into the place. And so we were honored to just serve in that small way. Another thing we've done is to say, hey, could we host your foster parent appreciation night at our church? And so we provide childcare, food, give them the mic for the programming, but we take that off them so they can work on their cases and do what they do best.
Yeah, I think what Brandy said there is so key. It's we don't need to approach them with our ideas. I think the best initial conversation is just say, how can we help you? What are some ways that we can come alongside you and help you? Well, our experience has been, that whether it's Department of Children's Services, youth villages, other, private foster care agencies or whatever, is that they are very open to those partnerships. And if we will listen to them, what you'll find is we have a lot of things, a lot of ways that we can partner with them. I know, we have an organization called Youth Villages here in Putnam County. And one of the things, just a simple thing, I got connected with one of their recruiters, and she was like, I just need a place to have recruitment workshops and informational seminars. And I was like, well, guess what? We got all kinds of rooms here in this building, and we would be that through the week, a lot of times they're sitting empty. We would love to do this. And to what these ladies said, we did it well. We provided refreshments and just made sure that the room was nice, and we put our best chairs in there, and just really wanted to and bless them with that, because a lot of times they're operating with limited resources, and we were in a position where we could do some things like that. And it's amazing, little things like that, mean so much to them. And like you say, once you earn their trust, that you are going to follow through, as you guys have said, and you're not just, wanting to give them all these extra bubble baths that you have, but showing that we want to know how we can help you, and we want to take our cues from you, because you're the ones doing it, and you know what the needs are. And, we have some resources, and so it just kind of has grown from that. And our heart all along has been, we want to be their first call. When they have a need, when they think of, gosh, and we don't have the resources to do this or the manpower, we want to be that first call they make. Say, hey, can the church help us? And because that's just helping us build those relationships with them and earn that trust and respect. And when you get to that point where you are their first call, then that's when man, you've really made that connection. You've got a good partnership working there, and it's going to impact a lot of families.
Yes, I will echo that. And Tracy, Brandy, y'all may know better, and Steve, you may know this too, but I'm not sure that DCS they can't go out and solicit things that they need necessarily, right? And so what we have done, by building the relationship, they can do that, right? They just can't wake up one morning and go, man, we need to host a foster parent dinner. We need to go find dinner somewhere. And so for churches to just be able to call up and say, hey, we believe in what you're doing. We know the work you're doing is hard. What do you need? And then for them to say, a room. I don't want to take this to the basic level, but that is, I think for all of us, we've hosted things at our church, and they're overwhelmed with the gratitude of that we would, because Brandy shared that they've been able to go in and paint the DCS office, but that hasn't happened in every region. And so you take somebody out of if we can just say a government building and put them in a nice building with unbelievably catered food and events is an easy win that I think all churches could do. But I think, Steve, you put it well. I think if we are consistent and we over deliver and we build trust with them, all of us, I think, have gotten those calls. A group of kids have come into care and there's an emergency situation. There is nothing more humbling to know that we got the call at whatever midnight to help with the situation. And so share some of, maybe share how your church body has been able to rally and get involved as the relationship has been built with DCS. I know each of us have shared our relationship with DCS, but like, how has your church responded, and what are some stories there that you might be able to share?
Last year, of course, everything was a little bit different. I think for all of us is how we were able to serve or reach out or be part of our community. But something that Blount County has had for a long time is in November, National Adoption Month. A lot of our foster to adopt families, that is a day when they will place their final adoption to be set. And there is a countywide celebration for a National Adoption Month. And we have been asked and been thrilled to be part of that, both by providing, as you've mentioned, more quality food and kind of over delivering, but being part of that, not only present as, physically as members of our church, watching some of our own celebrate their family's adoption, but also being there and watching many people throughout our community, churched and unchurched, and just being with them and seeing a happy day in the courthouse when so many of them have had sad and heartbreaking and just devastating days in the courthouse. So being part of a celebration as well as with them in the daily hard things has really been a sweet, sweet thing. We have the blessing, and I don't know if it's an honor, but of having had the most adoptions through DCS the last 2 years in our county. But if you flip that fact, we've had a really great need. So I celebrate that, but I also don't know if we want to have that. Wouldn't it be great if that didn't need to be an honor? So I also would say our church has been intentional to funnel orphan care, foster adoptive care into what we already do, rather than setting up something completely different. We operate in a small group way. So our big church becomes a smaller church within our small group environments. And we have funneled all of our RAP, or foster and adoptive family care and support, through our small groups. So we get a small group of about 10 to 12 people that promise to love and care for a specific foster or adoptive family for a year. And our orphan care team resources them with tools and equipment and encouragement throughout that year. But we have just made foster and adoptive care part of who we are as a church and part of what we do. So my goal is that it just becomes normalized and just a known thing. This is just part of us.
Tracy.
I can share. One thing when you're talking about DCS, which was an honor to do, they contacted us when they had two siblings that's combined into a group of 11, and they needed a bunch of beds and some things for that home so that the kids could remain in care and not go into foster care. So this was preventative measure. And so our church was able to rally through different business partners and get those things and keep the kids in their home, which is just the best. And if we can, and we told DCS, we want to do anything there is to keep kids in their homes, please, reach out to us with anything. We're happy to do that. But like Tracy said, it's in our DNA in our church. It's pretty similar. We have community groups, and a lot of community groups can choose to rally to wrap around a foster family. And that's worked so well. We've also had it go through to like our elementary school, like our kids program, where they'll bring diapers or pajamas for a drive for our wraparound closet, which is a resource center for all foster families in anywhere, but especially our county. And the middle and high school as well. We've done drives where they collect gift cards for Target. So for teens, when they're in with a foster family, they can go shop, with dignity, choose what they want to have. So it's been throughout our whole church. And then also one thing that's been really cool is the business partners that we encourage them to join Tennessee Kids Belong Business Impact. And through them, like we're able to get beds from Ashley Furniture, or like connect us to the right places. And that's been amazing to see the different people. Like last week, a woman, a 55-year-old, got a kinship placement of 5 kids, 3 to 5, single mom or single woman. And we were able to connect her with Nissan of Cool Springs, and they got her a van. So now she can drive around with them. So that's been awesome, is to plug people from our church into that business impact program.
Yeah, I think, and I know this is not the case in every church, and we've been very fortunate in our scenario. Number one, that, like I said, I've been on staff here for 19 years, and we are an adopted family. So, when I speak, I mean, those are my stories, are, adoption stories a lot of times. And so that's just our senior pastor. He and his family, they've been foster parents, so at times they've had foster kids. And we've had others on our staff as well who have fostered and adopted. And so it's just been a part of who we are. And I know that's not always the case, but if church leadership is willing to give voice, and like the lady said, the small groups in your ministries, that is so vital. But Sunday morning, that is such a big microphone. And so if your church leadership is willing to, whether it's, some of these national days that you recognize, that maybe you just show a video, or you have someone share a story, or you celebrate it, then that goes a long way. But in doing that, it is also so important. Anytime you have whether you video a family sharing their story of adoption or foster parenting or whatever you do, you've got to make sure that you give your congregation very clear next steps. Let them know what the next thing is. Because I always say, I grew up in church, and a lot of times we got those ought to sermons. You ought to be doing something about this, and we ought to be. But then it was like, but what? What does that look like on Tuesday morning? Okay, I'm feeling it here on Sunday. Yes, I feel this, but what? So we always try. And what we would do a lot of times, if we were going to highlight something or say something, we would invite representatives from the Department of Children's Services, from youth villages, any organization in our region, and we would invite them to come and set up information tables out in the lobby or on the portico or wherever, and then we would direct people. Here's your next step today. These folks are here, because what we found is people are at all different places. We've had a lot of families that were seriously thinking about becoming foster parents, adopting, and others who, they're not in that season, but they're blessed with resources. And they would come and say, hey, if you have a need, like you were saying this with this lady, that you're able to get a van. I mean, there are people with resources, deep pockets sometimes, that say, look, we're not necessarily called to adopt or foster, but we would love to help in some way. And we've got financial blessings to do that. So just making sure you give your people clear next steps, because as they decide, hey, this is something I want to do, let them see that it's not just to be a foster parent. That's fantastic, but there's also a lot of other ways you can come alongside and be a part of this ministry. So that's been the thing, and I think as we've been faithful to do that and intentional, we've seen our people really embrace that. And get involved. I mean, our folk, like I say, lots of folks have become foster parents. We've seen folks get involved volunteering at some of these local organizations, whatever their gifts and talents may be, to providing resources. We have photographers in our body that we partnered with a thing called the Heart Gallery, to take pictures of these kids and to create these amazing portable displays that can go to churches and set up. So you just never know what opportunities, but so if you make that available, raise the awareness, and then give them some clear next steps, we've seen our people really embrace that.
Yeah, if I just piggyback there, Steve, I always say walk, jog, run. That if I back up 15 years, I was the guy that would stand in front of the church and say, hey, we need to foster. Everybody needs to foster. Everybody needs to adopt. And they say less than 2% of people ever do that, and if I think about the congregation that I was speaking to, 1,000 people in the auditorium, well, I've just spoken to not many people, a small percentage. And some people aren't going to start off with hey, I want to start fostering or adoption. That's a big jump. And I think we would all agree, not everybody is called to do that, and not everybody needs to do that. I think for us as for our churches, it has been, for me personally, is just finding what are the easy on ramps. Where can they walk? Where can they, and once they start walking, like, hey, they can do, we do red tubs, we do Christmas, a big Christmas push for children in foster care every year, and so that's kind of an easy on ramp. And then, I call it a holy discontentment, is that I want them to do Christmas, but then I want them, as they're praying for that child, shopping for their child, they begin to say, man, what else can I do? And maybe I can partner with youth villages or what other organizations in our communities. And maybe I can mentor a kid. Maybe I can, and just bring them along. And I'll say for us, it has been really, really neat, really sweet just to see, this small group of folks doing some things begin to grow, and really kind of this community effort. And for us, my heart beat and bent as a dad of 6 kids, and realizing that, James talks about pure and undefiled religion is visiting orphans and widows, and what it doesn't say is that we're saving children, that we're saving orphans and widows. It says we're visiting, and we're entering into their distress. And so I think that is a great privilege, but we need to realize that there is loss. There's all levels of loss. There's trauma, there's abuse, on and on. And so I think as a church, we can truly be healing hands, but we need to be prepared. And so my charge for churches is, man, find where you can enter in, find some easy on-ramps, but you need to be ready to support the children and families that are going to potentially come into your care. And so in Shelby County, and kind of our work has been, I talked about some church rallying and locking arms with our work at the Memphis Family Connection Center. We have just said, hey, at the Memphis Family Connection Center, we have counseling and OT and speech and all those things. And we do a lot of training for families. And so the churches said, yeah, we want to do it well, but we also want to be prepared. And so that would also be one of my charges for churches, is don't jump in naively, do this well, be prepared. And here's the great thing about this program with the state, is that we've created resources for you. So anybody that's watching Tennessee Kids Belong, our trauma continuum that we've created for churches, of you can become aware, you can move toward trauma informed. I think all of us on this panel would be more than happy to talk to you if you had questions even about, hey, what can we do? What does this look like? All of y'all have talked about how that's made an impact in your children's ministry, youth ministry. I mean, but there are things that didn't just happen. There were things that had to be put in place. And so I say, find your own ramp, easy on. Well, let's just start there. We can end with this question. What's an easy on ramp? If they walk away, Steve, you said you need to give your congregation something to do. What would you tell anybody on here? What's your one takeaway of where they could start tomorrow? I put you on the spot. You don't. Anybody can jump in. Anybody can jump in. Wants to jump in?
Easy on ramps. I think, like you said, if you can maybe provide something where anybody can participate in, and that may just be like a drive. You've contacted your DCS office or youth villages or someplace and said, hey, what's something we could do? And they say, man, we need 200 pair of tennis shoes. Mm-hmm. And you do a drive. What we've seen here at the church, I mean, people, when we've done things like that, where we did a thing a few years ago with these rice bowls, and just get this little plastic rice bowl and you fill it up with money. And we ordered like 200 thinking, okay, well, probably way too many. And like by the first service, they were gone. I mean, because that's something anybody can take a little bowl and fill it up. So things like that, I think if you can create some type of drive, that's a very easy on-ramp. And what you're doing, obviously you're helping your local organization, but you're also raising the awareness of this. And then you can piggyback off of that in the future, because you've already given them some context that, hey, this is something we're about, and you did that, you felt good about that. Well, here, and you can go from there. So that would be an easy on-ramp.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, we did something like that early on where we gave out backpacks, just the string backpacks that are $1, and then gave a list of what to fill it back up and bring it back. It had like new underwear, toothbrush, toys, healthy snacks for children when they're waiting in the DCS office for something to do. And people blew us away. They just needed direction, and they filled so many bags with that. Last November, we did on Belong Sunday a little QR code, and so it shows your phone, and then it gave different ways to engage. So an easy one would be, collect gift cards and give to DCS office for your small group or whatever. I also know a lot of times the DCS workers use their own money when they're transporting to give the children food, at Chick-fil-A or McDonald's. Just having those on hand at DCS would be some sort of collection like that in a small way. Giving it to DCS, I think, would be an easy on-ramp to build relationships, along with asking if they want to be involved to join kind of a RAP team, finding that if you do have one foster family in your church, and gathering people to say, what can we do to help them? Could we do a meal train? Could we provide respite care? And all that has to have training, but just gathering the minds and looking at the needs and getting creative.
I love all those. I think knowing what you all said, some people, a very small percentage, will end up actually fostering. But there was something said in one of our calls in this initiative a couple months ago. It said one of the goals is to give everyone in our faith communities just a way to serve vulnerable families. So there is a role for everyone along that continuum. I think first and foremost, though, just asking people anywhere in your sphere of influence to pray. Because like you said, we can be in the hard, we can walk in the hard, but it's that prayer that is going to continue to have just God stir in people's hearts to take action, and prayer just for perseverance for those in the trenches every day, whether as a foster family, an adoptive family, that worker picking that kid up at midnight, or feeding them, as Brandy said. And I also think having a specific start and end point with an ask, like for the next 3 weeks, we're going to do that. But I think something we miss, as Steve said, the you oughta times in church, I think celebrating what has been accomplished, not because of what we did, but look what God did, and look what we were able to, as a community, do for someone else, with no expectation of anything in return. They may never darken our doorstep. They may never, ask what's next, but we just were for our community. We were for families, and there's a way that everyone can be part of that. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So there's just this inclusion about, I find this very open-handedness about being in the foster adoptive realm, that once someone is involved, they get that taste. And the ones that really come back, as Steve said, the blood in the water, as the people do come back, they want something more. So I think offering increased ways of involvement for those that just come back and want more, and then just keep feeding them more opportunities. And sometimes those do become the families that do dip their toe into, well, maybe I could just go to that informational meeting. Or how do you all do it? I see you with your foster kids. Or how do you all do that with adoption? Or do you have a relationship with the birth families? I mean, I think you just keep providing those steps to engage. And pretty soon, you've just got them.
That's good. I mean, the reality is the need is great. And, I don't think the government was ever mandated to raise our kids or make the impact, but the church, almost 50 times in scripture, and every time, it's always an action verb that says that we are to defend the fatherless, we are to seek justice, and on and on. And so when it comes to foster care and adoption, I think there is one entity that has that command, and that's the local church. And so I think that would kind of be my last charge in this, is that let's, a lot of people sit around and talk about how hard things are, the system's broken, and on and on and on. I think we as the local church have an unbelievable opportunity if not a mandate, to step into those places and shine light and be salt. And so I think in every region, wherever you are, there is opportunity today to serve a family. And so I think if we can step in humbly, and I think all of us would say when we stepped in, there was no great grandiose plan of where we would be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It was just an initial ask with the Department of Children's Services. How can we serve? What can we do? And I think if you step in your region, and lock arms, if there's other churches in your region, and how can y'all partner together to make an impact and see what happens. It may start with one family and it may grow. And I think we have all seen that it will grow because the need is great. The need is great, which Tracy said, I wish the need wasn't great. And I wish it could go away. But we are here and we are in our communities, and my charge would be let's make an impact, and let's step in and do what we feel like the Lord has called us to do. Well, is there any other closing thoughts, Dave? Dave's on. I'll let you close us out, Dave.
I appreciate it. And I would encourage, thank you all so much for what you said and for what you're doing in the churches that are around the state. And I would encourage any church or any even nonprofits, if you're just a member of a church and this is something that you think your church ought to be involved in, I encourage you to talk to your pastor and just see what we could do or how you may start. They all said it incredibly well. It's a matter of starting. It's a matter of just saying, we want to do something. We need to do something. And let's see if we can move. We do have need today, just so you know, there's about 1,200 families, 1,200 kids that need permanent foster families. We have a lot more foster families than that already in the state, but that's about what we need. There's over 300 kids that are ready to be adopted. Kids whose parental rights have been terminated, and they are they're available for adoption. One of the things that Mark didn't elaborate on, but he's done an incredible amount of work in this state in this area of trauma-informed care. And one of the things that I would encourage all the churches to do is you're building out and thinking about support services, and reach out and look at what training could you provide potentially for the church, just to begin to encourage people that are in this space. Because in our office, we're working not only in this space, but we're working with prison reentry and human trafficking and a number of areas, and everybody is dealing with trauma. And so for the church to really become skilled at knowing how to address issues of trauma is the difference between potentially someone inadvertently causing greater harm to a situation and bringing greater healing. And everybody wants to do the healing. It's just sometimes the mistakes are made. So I would add to everything else been said, the business partners, the foster parenting, especially the support services. It's a really easy on-ramp for people to join and begin that conversation. And if the church has never considered trauma-informed care as a particular pathway that they should go down, I would encourage somebody to begin to explore it. And Mark is, and with his organization is, probably one of the preeminent groups that could train on that. And he has tons of resources available. And I would just encourage you to reach into what that's going on. So I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank everybody on the panel for participating, everybody that has joined the call. I thank you for being part of it. If you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. Most of you should have one of our email addresses. Feel free to use those, and we'll make sure that you're connected with the right folks in the right place. And I can tell you that all of these folks on the call are very willing to further share their experience or how they're organized within their church about this or what they're involved in. And as I recall, we're on the call a representative of all different size churches. They're not all, obviously Brandy's church is a real mega church. Tracy, I don't know if yours is considered mega, but I know it's really large and influential in the area you're in. Steve, you all are very influential in your community, but just the draw, you're not as large. You're not going to be as large as City Church, but things can be done. And Mark has worked with a whole level of churches in Memphis. He's been active in this for years, engaging people in this space. So it's not a matter of size. It's a matter of the size of your heart and your willingness to engage and help these kids where they are. So thank you all for the tremendous job you're doing, serving the kids here in Tennessee, serving the foster parents here in Tennessee, and leading your churches and shepherding your members to be able to respond in a way that they haven't been able to do before. So thank you very much for that. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to give us an email. You can go online at tnfostershope.com. That's in the chat box. You can also follow us on all social media. It's at TN Fosters Hope, one word, at TN Fosters Hope. Follow us on social media. There's lots and lots of resources available. So thank you guys for everything you're doing. God bless, and look forward to working with a lot more churches as a result of your great work here. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave.